Ahí ya es visible en mi pantalla. Perfecto. Listo. Ok. Entonces, ahora sí, iniciamos. Buenas tardes a todos. Buenos días, perdón. Bienvenidos a esta sesión de la Trailblazers Community de User Group Veracruz. El día de hoy, pues primero queremos agradecer a los que están presentes y bienvenidos a esta sesión fuera de lo habitual, de las que normalmente llevamos a cabo los sábados, pero esta sesión tratará sobre el tema de desmitificar Agile por los Trailblazers, lo cual contamos con la super Inés Garcia, que nos va a hablar sobre este tema y gran parte de la sesión será en inglés, por lo que de todos modos eventualmente podrán verlo con subtítulos en YouTube, en nuestros canales de YouTube. Presento como tal, Inés García em, es, se encarga de ayudar a organizaciones, equipos e individuos a entregar mejor valor, reducir desperdicio, enfocarse en lo que cuenta más que otra cosa. Ella es autora, ella cuenta con muchas certificaciones de Salesforce y pues bueno, pertenece al Salesforce MVP Hall of Fame. Por ahí sus libros los pueden encontrar disponibles en Amazon. Agile Salesforce y Sustainable Happy Profit. Y pues bueno, sin más hacer la democión, pasamos con la presentación de Inés.
Bueno, muchas gracias por tenerme por aquí. A ver, déjame compartir y nos organizamos. ¿Puedes ver bien?
Sí,
Estoy compartiendo, ok, es Miro. Si vamos a hablar de Agile, la presentación también va a ser un poco así. Am, Nada, decir lo primero que, disclaimer, yo llevo mucho tiempo viviendo en UK. Yo nací en Barcelona, pero de aquí a un año haré más tiempo viviendo en el Reino Unido que en Barcelona. Entonces, sobre todo, cosas de Salesforce y Agile han sido toda mi carrera en esta parte del mundo. Así que yo hablo Spanglish. Si hace falta frenarme, a veces hablo muy deprisa también, decirme si hace falta aclarar algo o le intento dar una vuelta con mi medio translation, me decís por favor. Hay que ser ágiles también al dar sesiones. Lo que me gustaría empezar es para entender un poco los que estáis por aquí, qué es lo que os ha traído a venir a la sesión. Y si me queréis decir un poco vuestro rol y dónde andáis por el mundo, si lo ponéis por el chat, a mí me ayuda también a tailor la información que doy.
claro, por ahí en el chat nos pueden escribir cualquier detalle. Bueno, como tal, te doy un tip como tal. Nuestro grupo de comunidad de usuarios cuenta en su mayoría con administradores, aunque también existen project managers. Por ahí se nos han sumado algunos, bueno, ahí, por ejemplo, ahí veo a Ángel Fuertes, él es arquitecto de Salesforce, entonces también por ahí tenemos variado el rol. A Bolívar Teixeira no lo ubico todavía, pertenece al grupo de Brasil. En general, digamos que estamos en su mayoría admins y project managers.
Ok, genial, muchas gracias, Rodrigo. Y si lo queréis poner por el chat también, yo lo voy mirando. Okay, so let's kick off. The aim of the session is to clarify the hype of what Agile really is about. I assume many of you use certain words, maybe use some of the common tools associated with it, like Jira, maybe the concept of user stories, and all this sort of jargon. But I want to go deeper and understand and debunk some of the myths around all of this, because that is the difference between make it or break it. And yes, I'm going to be delivering content, but you are also going to get involved. So I'm going to ask you a few things along the way. So get ready, your fingers for the chat. And there is loads I want to cover, and there is so much that we won't have time for. And I come to terms with that. So, first up is that I'm so very happy to be here. It's all Rodrigo's fault, really. So, if anyone's to blame, and I want to extend also gratitude to all of you to show up and the great work that you're doing to create the community in not just Mexico, but that area in the world is important. We make it happen. So, and as I said, yo hablo Spanglish at best. So if anything, just stop me and we'll find a way to explicarlo de otra manera. Rodrigo explained a little bit about myself. Hola, I'm Inés Garcia, and I describe my work as an agile and climate coach. I'm a Salesforce MVP, Hall of Fame. I have at the moment 27 certifications and counting. And I've been doing this work for a decade and a half, Agile and Salesforce. And I believe in living the world in a better state than how you find it. And so with that in mind, my work has been gearing towards sustainability. I'm a circular economy professional, biomimicry practitioner, permaculture, agroforestry design, some things about regenerating land systems. So lots of things. You can see here some of the things I get involved, a lot of community related, but also in the agile world around the sustainability initiative. We signed a manifesto around sustainability. I published a book about that. With the mind of sustainability and the community of Salesforce, we launched a book, Food Force for Good. It's a recipe book. There is a story there behind, but every cent is going to help people that do not have enough to eat. We're partnering with Action Against Hunger. So anyway, do what you love and love what you do, because life is perishable. So one key adventure that you see here, and Rodrigo mentioned, and have my prop here, is that back in 2020, I finally managed to publish the book about Salesforce and Agile. And it was about time, because it was in my back of my mind for a very long time. And so 2020 brought many things, but actually also brought me the ability to focus my certain time that will have been spent elsewhere into getting this done in an agile way. So small bite-sized pieces, getting feedback earlier, and then one bit at a time, you're getting closer to your goal. And we'll go into that in a minute. And it's packed of real life stories of teams that I work with in the Salesforce world. And so I'm on this quest to demystify what is Agile really about, bring it down to earth, to its core, so that's easy to understand and it's tangible, so that the community can see the daily work in a way that is more joyful. And that's admins, consultants, architects, basically humans that wants to deliver value in a more thriving and more interesting and less painful way in the Salesforce world. So out of 4 pictures, which one, and you can put a number, I tried to put like emojis number, but just pop it in the chat, which one describes the best of how you feel? So there is not a wrong answer. How do you feel about that?
I'm trying to find the emoji.
It can be a number, it's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm, okay, okay. I'm surprised there is no any number twos. All right, cool. So let's see how you feel at the end of the session. So, as good philosophers, we should start by definitions. And so, Agile really, if you look at the dictionary, I don't know if anybody uses those things anymore, but the meaning of agile as an adjective is to move quickly in an easy way. Now, I found that agile with capital A, if I can, is a iterative and incremental approach. So no big bangs, the iterations, and we build upon the existing parts so that we can optimize predictability and we can control risk. To its core, it's good to be reminded this because often I hear organizations, they would, with best intention, describe themselves as agile, but they do big bangs. They don't optimize in the way that they predict, nor they control risk. Therefore, not very agile. Now, I found these other descriptions much better, which is we aim, what is the purpose? The purpose is to deliver better value for us in this context, better Salesforce value, do that sooner, safer, happier. So we could spend a tiny little bit here. So get ready for the chat. But when you hear deliver better Salesforce value, what does that mean to you? Faster return of investment? What else? That is something that is useful for the company. Adoption. Sometimes better value is about moving from tickets or requirements into things that are used. It is very easy to fall into churning things and doesn't get used. All right. Useful is a good word. Best value for the customer. Yeah. Whilst keeps the company profitable, I suppose. Okay. How about sooner? When you hear delivering sooner, not faster, but sooner could mean potentially. In time, yeah. Better sooner than perfect. Getting the product earlier so that we get feedback earlier. So there is a lot to sort of unpeel from sooner. It's not about going fast and break things. Not far from estimated time of delivery, potentially. I have a free tiny ebook, if you look in Amazon, about estimates. If any of you want to grab that one, a little bit of philosophy about how come we get better at estimation and what's estimation about. All right, next one up. How about safer? When you hear delivering Salesforce safer, what could possibly mean? Well architected. And my curious mind then wants to know what is a well architected thing. We can talk about decoupling, scalability, many things there.
Even though Salesforce has been like killing the well-architected groups and all of that because of Agentforce, but well, that's for another um, topic.
So how we evolve our solutions, how they plug into the existing parts. So we put something, this idea of incremental, we put something out there that doesn't break the previous stuff. Safer, you may have heard of the concept of DevSecOps. So moving from shifting left to the idea of security. So security as part of earlier, like you will do with testing, quality assurance earlier on the process. So that's also safer. Yeah. How about happier?
I've changed everyone to presenters so they can open their mic and we do this a little bit more interactive.
Okay.
Even open your cameras, it's fine.
All right. So any thoughts with this? Because we don't speak about happier enough, I don't think. And this, it makes a big difference in the amount of energy and the type of energy that you create. And therefore the results and the quality of the results. Even if we just look at it in this very selfish lens. But what could possibly mean delivering Salesforce happier? Is it to adopt providing value, having fun, finding joy, doing interesting stuff? I'm very curious. I get bored easily. Happier could be that the process and the result is going to give satisfaction. That, yeah, that was work on, and also the people using it, resolving problems. Nice. So this is, in my opinion, a very simple exercise that you can do with your teams. And so you generate a common understanding of what are you there for. And it's a very simple filter when you get very long backlogs or requirements to look, is this going to generate better value? How can we tackle this in a way that can be start using earlier, sooner? Safer, is this what safer means to us? And are we ticking the boxes? Similarly to happier. Okay. So one way to depict this sooner, safer, happier could be this way. So let's think of this. So we want to deliver a product that's going to help us to go from A to B. Return process or whichever project you have in mind. And so the more traditional ways to tackle projects where you can only do that, go from A to B, is when the 100% of the thing is delivered, which is this part here. Instead, we want to move is this incremental iterative approach of sooner, value sooner, right? So that you can start going from A to B from the very beginning. And MVP is this idea of minimum viable product or marketable feature, depends of which can get out there, or minimum lovable product you may have here. But it has to be used. Often I find this idea of, oh, let's do MVP, but then we have the backend and then nobody can use the product. So not really an MVP, it's a partially baked something. So for example, a story here, a Salesforce story. So life takes you through so many places. When I came to the UK, I was doing other work. One of the very first people I met. Then many years later, she was working for an NGO, very small in London. They basically had 7 staff plus volunteers. And that was basically the lifetime work of the CEO that built connections and fundraising all her life to basically transform places, forgotten places in the city, into community gardens. And all information, everything was where? In her head, all her life work, can you imagine? And then one day she got diagnosed with brain cancer. So my friend reached out and said, I know that you're doing this things of technology, right? This is where we at. And we had to move quick. And as you know, through the power of us, then you have the ability to ask for an instance with certain amount of licenses and licenses. And the package back then have grown over the years. Now it's handled quite differently. But to go live and to start using the thing quickly, what we did is started small, so that at least that information and lifetime service could be captured and then continue as her legacy. Or even just now, I'm wrapping up a tiny nonprofit cloud, so not the package, but the actual cloud implementation for a nonprofit that is focused on biodiversity. A right mess with legacy systems, lack of data collection, and dispersed donation transactions, right? So it's this idea of start small and learn fast. And really, for me, it's this idea of reducing waste. And I focus a lot in my work around that. So waste of time, right? We often look at how can we be more lean, waste of time, but also waste of money and energy of everybody involved. And then if we put my circular economy hat is how can we reduce waste of materials, of energy? And those are big, important questions we need to ask ourselves, not just as a society. Don't let me divert. Okay, so starting with why. This all sounds reasonable, great, but let's look at some numbers. After all, we all in IT, information and technology. So let's look at some information. So Salesforce themselves, they made the move in 2006 for their engineering team into more agile approach. And with that, you can see they increased the productivity almost by 40%. And the major releases, they wrapped up 60% faster. And this is big numbers. And think 2006 and Apex is showing up in the game. So teams can go fast, real fast. But if the rest of the organization doesn't keep up, then it sort of defeats the object. And that's where we have this idea of business agility, is in terms of success to the market, but also better ways of working. I was talking about Happier. There is a lot of things happening there. Collaboration, right? Because we can churn requirements really quickly, but are we still doing organizational forecast for what's going to happen in the next 18 months? Really? Agility in terms of like satisfaction, not only for your customers, but also your employees. Your employees are the faster, closest way to reach to your customers. So employee experience is a thing. Speed to market, give you competitive advantage, and so on, right? So it really needs to go hand in hand. More numbers. There is this case report that says that Agile boosts success by almost 40%. But specifically here, I put it because the nuisance that as more complex something is, the more you get out of it. Right? Simple things, don't bother. Complex things, you get better results. And this is Dr. Rico with some of the research on improvement of cost, schedule, productivity, So hopefully by numbers, I convinced you as well. Now, to bring it into another way to consume the why this works, let's think about them. If we have this amount of stuff to do, so that's stuff to get out the door. This is our project. And this is our ideal timeline, right? A traditional way to tackle the delivery of this stuff is going through those phases. With a requirement phase, then a design phase when that's finished, then we do the development when that's finished, the integration phase that's finished, then hopefully we get to test it, we get to deploy it. Now, at this point in time is the moment when we know the least that we are ever going to know about the project. And so what happened? Well, we do this. Start all our meetings and requirements phase, write things up, la, la, la. Then we continue doing design phase. We have often hand over all that to somebody else. Continue maybe some workshops, who knows what, right? At this point, we still have the same amount to get out the door that at the beginning. And who knows how long we've been spending here and what has changed since, what has become more clear, where do we have more certainty about. And then you start touching the product. And so you find out that activities is a very interesting object or other things. And it's fine. Finding information is good. Now, what's happened? In this point of time, you have 3 variables to play with, right? So you have your time, and you say, oh, can we have some more time? Because we find all these things. Now we start touching it, and, I don't find this conversation goes down well, but you have another variable, you have cost. And you can say, oh, can we have some more money? Because, this happened. That doesn't go down well either. And often just by chucking more money to a project doesn't necessarily mean that's going to go well. Like if you're going to hire more people, you have more lines of communication, you have another layer of complexity that you'll have to manage. And so the last variable that we have to play with is quality. And unfortunately, this is the one that gets compromised, right? We're still pushing ahead. It's costing us the same time. We're pushing ahead, but we compromise test, quality assurance, and so on. And so what happened? Well, we have this bombshell effect, right? And the name tells you all. You go to production and there's disaster. So what we want to do is something else. We want to do that iterative value MVPs and then build upon it, incremental, so that, let's see, we start like this. We do requirements and design and develop, integration, test, deploy. And then we take another piece that gives us most value, and then we do requirements, design, development, and then we go to production, hence the little gift every time. Production, production, production. So whatever happens, you get a pandemic here, it doesn't matter. You're gone to market every time. And my last rant about other ways to delivering projects is that even the guy that's attributed the concept of waterfall, of a cascade of events, even himself in the paper's proceeding, he says, I believe in this concept, but the implementation described above is risky and invites failure. So why on earth is so widely used? Also, this could potentially take us to a tangent here and talk about why we ought to attack documentation differently, because they didn't even read his paper until the end. All right.
You brought me back to school. Yeah, that being Vietnam flashbacks and all of that. Yeah, I discussed with my professors then that why do we have to develop this way if it's meant to failure? And he told us, well, that's why you have to learn it, so you don't fail. Yeah, all right. Well, but how? Well, you gotta try, and then one of X times you'll succeed. Okay, well, I gotta fail a lot, I suppose. So,
I mean, you learn from failure, but hopefully you learn and you just the way you do things, because doing the same and expect a different result, I think, is the description of madness, yeah, by Einstein. And if you think about it, there is two parts to this. One is that we love the false sense of control. Life is nothing, but it's not linear. So how can we expect, when everything moves around us, that we're going to have this perfect plan and it's going to happen? Especially when we're touching an emergent area, right? A century ago, and when I think a century, look, 1970, maybe over a century ago, our life we were more focused on execution rather than innovation. One could argue that life was more predictable. We knew what to accomplish, how we're going to do it. We had really defined roles, modules, practices to execute very defined plans. Now things change more quickly, and we need to be able to inspect and adapt, and deal with greater uncertainty even sooner. So what is Agile really? Because I hear a lot, it's a methodology, and then I twitch. Because if we think, and again, I'm going back to definitions, if we think about what is a methodology, well, a methodology is a system of methods used in a particular area of study, right? Something very specific. That doesn't tell us much. Then we look at what is a method. Well, a particular procedure for accomplishing something, especially a very systematic, something established. I put the avocado here because remind me the word of advocate. Now, I advocate for that Agile really is a mindset. It's a way of something. It's a set of attitudes that held by someone and therefore held as a group is important. So do it with your team. Understand what you stand for. It's going beyond the behavior of user stories, Jira, stand up, sitting down, to really being, right? Moving from doing something into a way of looking at the problems, attacking challenges, our assumptions, beliefs, values, where we stand for. So Agile is a mindset, it's not a methodology. To give you a taster as well, is that a few years back, Salesforce consultancy, the CEO read my book, loved it, and said, you know what, come and work with us for a bit. And they had a project that was already delayed for 6 months. And the key business analyst recently left. Now, in less than 3 weeks, and we were over the Christmas period, sort of disruption and all of that happens, we were already deploying to production. So how can we sooner, safer, happier? You may have come across the story of the Agile Manifesto, and a little bit of a story otherwise is that back on the days, this has been going on for more than 25 years. So in 2001, people gathered in a ski resort in Utah. They were doing things differently in terms of developing technology, and they said, you know what, we kind of in this emerging space, everybody looks at it differently. Let's keep our differences aside and find commonalities, right? Let's find our patterns. What do we align on? How to be more effective in the work that we do. And you had people from different, I don't know how to call it, approaches. So extreme programming or Scrum, the adaptive software engineering, Crystal, feature-driven development, pragmatic programming, also the different tips there. So they came together and they put, if you go today to agilemanifesto.org, there you have your 12 principles for values. And also people doesn't read that, but there is an about section, and it's a treasure of like really what are we about, what they were about. Right? Half a quarter of a century since. And therefore, if you go to Agile Sustainability, manifesto.org, that's some of the work of, well, this has been around for a long time. Now we have a better understanding of our species situation. How can we enhance our own practice? Right? There are other things that 25 years ago we didn't think about. And yes, Agile was born from software or technology professionals, but you can apply this in many things. Yeah. I somewhere have a video of a construction of a 15-story building that is earthquake resistant 9, and the thing was built in 6 days. Perhaps not all the features and but the building in itself in 6 days. And if you look at the video, it's all about this delivering value sooner. Some time back, when I was back in London, I went to find an office space to a building site. So I was booking my office space before the things was finished. So you get your revenue going, right? Which allows you to do other things. They finish the floors at different stages. So you can start having people there already using your product value sooner, right? So it's this idea of incremental, iterative, it builds upon what exists. I've done some work with one of the biggest utility companies here in the UK to a roofing company in the US. And that was also interesting because you also have bags. You go to site, you take some tiles, and you're like, oh, surprise. Or, you can do spikes, this idea of like ring fencing about of time for something that you have a lot of uncertainty about. So you learn more and you can make decisions, right? So these ideas can be applied anywhere. Done some work with a PMO team, like and that was interesting in itself, just because of the concepts that the PMO team will take. But we will look at our burn downs. We will look at what's stopping us. We'll look at where our time is going. Right?
It's some kind of having modularity. You start making and delivering.
Of what is of value. It's very easy to like change stories. We need to do more validation of what we put out there. What is the bare minimum of this idea that I can prove myself wrong and be comfortable about proving ourselves wrong? Put it there in the market. Is it behaving in the way that I expect? Yes, no. We spend so much time in the beforehand planning, right? And so much time in looking into how accurate are we from our time spent, from our planning of long time ago, and the actuals, so from estimates to actuals. But who is looking at the value delivered? Is the value delivered doing the thing that we expect? I think that we need to shift some of the time to that. So I found this site quite interesting, and is only talking to us about marketing technology. Is basically they collect the amount of available applications for MarkTech, and they different things. They color coded this is the type of thing, but this is only marketing technology available applications in the market, and it has been growing like a lot over the years. That's I bet there is another one, which it will be even more manic. And so the growth of options and solutions out there is exponential. And what I'm trying to depict here, and we're only looking at marketing, right? What we touch is just so much more. Change is innate. It's part of us, is the exponential growth of options, of technology, of possibilities. This ever change is not going to slow down. On the contrary. So please don't get confused with flashy new things and aim and measure impact, which is kind of related to what we were just saying just now. What about validation of our ideas, right? What's going to make the impact that we are seeking? Just because something new technology is out there, there is no need to check new things, new tech. We know that tech by itself doesn't do it. I did say that things change quickly. And just thinking, 5 years ago on the roller coaster that affected our world, and how many months and months of projects since then that maybe still today in limbo, or things that just gone to the bin that are not used, is mad. And all that time and effort and funds. So I really think, especially with what's happening with the tech world at the moment, that we can make a difference. And in fact, it's key that we keep going smarter, not just harder. Keep in mind that mindset of when approaching a challenge. What is the bare minimum? Learn fast, right? Start small, learn fast. So again, there are values and principles. We don't have time to go through that, even an Agile Onion that you have here, but you can get for free a course that I have out there if you go to this website, if you want to take your time on that. So you can take a screenshot. That's my silent moment if you write it down. But I also cover like the common patterns of the cycle, like, for example, the Scrum framework in detail, and then we go into other examples and stories. And when we were talking about having feedback loops, right, this idea of delivering value in iterations, you often see something like this. A sprint or cycle, call it however. The reason for these things to exist, regardless of the touch points, is so that you can get to market earlier, start trading, like the building, get that income earlier, value earlier, get feedback earlier, so that you learn what's really wanted, what works, so you can inform the next steps and start, rather than guessing, start taking informed decisions by how the market behaves and reduce waste. So in the example of the nonprofit, we may have enabled households and organizations and relationships and affiliations. And then we added donations and income management, and then some very basic volunteering, because that was basically their backbone of the operation. So we could look at what do we need to do now, what we have to do, what do we do later, what we don't have to do. And the fact that with our work, right, we shouldn't forget the creative part of our work. We take ideas and we make them tangible through technology. And you can apply a deterministic mindset to an emergent area. And I think our work is emerging, it's always changing, there's always things going on. And it's a fabric layer of any business technology nowadays. So in an emergent area, the only thing that you can do is poke, learn, and respond accordingly. We'll sort that out soon. I'll send you something else. So again, time box sprint cycle. So how can you today, with your team, with your requirements, with your work, how can you respond to new events and information in a small time loops? How can you therefore, because you respond to information, deploy viable value into the market? How can you learn from that value, that validation we were talking about? So that's going to give you an input of what you're going to do next. so that you can adjust based on the feedback on the actual use of your uses or not uses, so that you stop wasting time on things that just doesn't work. And therefore, by stop wasting time, you gain time, right? So that you can experiment and innovate faster. Especially in our world in Salesforce, you need to make space to read your release notes, plays with the things, right? There is always something new stuff coming up. Create the space to stay at the top of your game. Nobody's going to give you that. You need to make that space by reducing noise, but reducing waste. I wonder if some of you might have come across the danger zone of the so-called hybrid, or what is Scrum fall, or Agile fall, which the name says it all, really. And it defeats the object because you basically end up shooting yourself in the foot, missing out the benefits. You are trying to apply to this emergent area a control, a false sense of control. And the reason why this doesn't work is because we tend to apply our previous knowledge to new ideas. So things get really confusing. So really careful with that. You can sense after, if you train yourself in meetings, you will see the eagerness to get a full sense of control, because our monkey brain wants to be safe, right? We basically drawn to that. So let's try to catch things in time and being able to have mature, informed conversations. Because at the end of the day, in those meetings, in those decisions, we all own this together. So I wanted to leave a little bit of time, but just to leave you with some last food for thoughts, right? So applying those ideas really and honing yourself back to sooner, safer, happier, better value. What those things mean? How can we, in iterations, increase our predictability, control our risk? How can we become better at what we do? How can we have fun along the way? So those things are going to give you a competitive advantage that no other manner can at this rate. So as a single admin, operation manager, volunteering, right? What you want to do is increase that predictability. And that's a question you can ask yourself every month. And reduce risk. Are we becoming better at what we do? Yes, no. Those are simple questions. You can, touch yourself and say, are we getting there or no? Having the vision, this map is there to remind me that having the vision where you're going, right? Now, fine-tuning along the way is what's gonna lead you to destination. It's like a journey, right? You have the lights in your car, but they show you as far as you need to see, and then you adjust if you're driving at night. So this idea of the cake is, how can you slice the work? What is the minimum that is going to give you the most return? Now, and it's a slice of the cake because you want to eat it. You want to be able to eat it. You don't want just to have the sponge or just the cream or just the cherry, right? It has to have it all. And if we think about traditional software, you will have your database layer, your business logic layer, right? In the Salesforce world, and your UI layer. In the Salesforce world, it's all a bit mixed up, and in partly it's easier for us to get things out the way. But remember yourself, is this thing I'm working on end-to-end value? Yes, no. So that we can, a ripple effect across the ecosystem, it will be amazing. Start delivering better Salesforce values sooner, safer, happier. So if you change instances, if you change clients, if you increase your tech stack, you are pleased to what you see, you think about your past self, that's thought about your future self, and you thank yourself. When you refer documentation, it's updated, it's easy consumable, it's bite-sized. So remember, the goal is not to be agile. The goal is to improve. So that's as much as I had for now. No, it's big subjects. If you have any questions, then let me know, or comments. Yeah.
Well, I have a thing on the Get Agile link. It's broken, so it's
I'm on it.
okay. And funny thing, I thought of this slicing the cake. I get this if it occurred to me, if you eat a whole cake, you'll get a stomach cake. So don't do that. Slice it. Go bit by bit, or some pieces of cake, but not sit and eat the whole thing. So you'll get hurt. So I think this can apply just to project management, or to delivering Salesforce in this case. Everyone, you can open your mic if you have any question for Inés.
And I just put the link, which you saw me already Googling, to grab the course for free on the chat.
Okay.
All right, my pleasure. And I think I'm easy to find in LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out. We can take conversations from there as well. Yeah, thank you for spending. Oh, sorry, go on then.
Yeah, I need to ask you something. As I'm a beginner in this particular agile framework, so how would you suggest me to begin with? I mean, how am I supposed to, learn or start my journey?
Well, grab my book, get the free course. There are things out there. I will probably point you to the same sooner, better value sooner, safer, happier. What does that mean for you? Who do you work with? What does it mean for your team? How can you deliver that? And I may have, just to give you a little bit more context, you can expand in that idea and start breaking it down into the kind of things we get at the door, right? So better value, we're talking about scalability, integration, security, compliance, reliability, resilience, data, right? Where you're storing the things, usability, cost. That's also an interesting variable to bear in mind, right? So, and break it down across all of them, right? Doing scalable things. What are the patterns that we're following? What are the things that we need to keep in mind when delivering volume, reach audience? Not to give you too many things, but this is a very simple exercise that you can expand with your teams so that you have something that you're working towards and you become better at what you do. That's it. The aim is to improve. And you can start now and you don't have to ask for permission. So does that help?
Okay, and I understand your thing, but the thing is, if you say for example, scalability, volume, and to reach audience, I mean, the first step I can understand, but the thing is, I am totally new to this particular field. So that is what my question is. I mean, if I want to start from the initiation, what should be my initiation? That is what my question is. I mean, I understand you're saying that this should be my thing, line of work I should do, but how I should go with it? I mean, what should be my first step? That is what my question.
Watch my training, read my book.
Sorry?
What's the training? Read my book. And ask yourself this in your work. How can I do whatever you do today in a way that is bring better value?
Okay.
Because you have your context. You have your context. I don't, right?
Yeah, I understand completely. I understand. Okay, so okay. Thank you, Ines. Thank you.
Good luck. You'll rock.
In some ways, Ines, it's more like, as you state on the presentation, it's to change your mindset to work in agile. or start working or thinking in Agile to deliver the better and the sooner, all of that.
Yeah, and if you think, I don't know the context here, but like even if you want to get a job around this and you may not have the job around it. So what is the bare minimum you can do today that's going to help you to get there? I do a lot of coaching and some career mentorship and things like that. And sometimes people feel like, I'm just going to quit my job and do this magical new thing tomorrow. It's not going to happen. And the market is very saturated. And so what can you do today? Which spaces are you involved today? Maybe in your current job, there is an opportunity, right? So start small, learn fast. What are the small loops you can do to learn if you are getting closer where you want to go? I hope that helps.
Awesome, Ines. I'm going to present just to close this. And just let me share my screen. And this was okay. So everyone, thank you for coming. Gracias por asistir. Espero esta sesión haya sido de mucho despertar el conocimiento y pues comenzar ahora sí que en esta línea de pensamiento nuevo de lo que sería lo Agile. Y me robé esta frase por ahí de internet, que bueno, es más como el optimismo es un gaje del oficio en la programación, pero el tratamiento es la retroalimentación del mismo. Está compleja la frase, buscaba un poquito más de sentido en esto. Es complicado, al menos para mí, explicarles exactamente a qué se refiere. Pero dentro de todo esto, cuenten con que les agradezco el que hayan asistido y podrán ver esta grabación en nuestro canal de YouTube, que por ahí luego les iré compartiendo. Por ahí voy a taggear también el canal de Inés, claro que sí. Y si me pudieran regalar un momentito de abrir su cámara para que nos tomáramos una fotito del recuerdo. Ahí está mi compa Jorge. Por ahí debe andar Benito, Bolívar, Sumia, Nardo, David. Más contenido como este vamos a estar compartiendo. Eventualmente vamos a llegar a solventar todas las sesiones que ustedes necesiten y que les guste. Y pues, muchísimas gracias por asistir. Ahora sí, como dicen, vamos a hacer una... Sonriamos todos a la cámara. Sí. Muchísimas gracias por asistir y pues que tengan una excelente tarde. Thanks for coming and have a nice day. Thanks, Inés.
Thanks, Inés. Ciao.
Thanks, Ines.